أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قال هذا فراق بيني وبينك، سأنبئك بتأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا. أما السفينة فكانت لمساكين يعملون في البحر، فأردت أن أعيبها، وكان وراءهم ملك يأخذ كل سفينة غصبا. وأما الغلام فكان أبواه مؤمنين فخشينا أن يرهقهما طغيانا وكفرا، فأردنا أن يبدلهما ربهما خيرا منه زكاة وأقرب رحما. وأما الجدار فكان لغلامين يتيمين في المدينة، وكان تحته كنز لهما وكان أبوهما صالحا، فأراد ربك أن يبلغا أشدهما ويستخرجا كنزهما رحمة من ربك، وما فعلته عن أمري ذلك تأويل ما لم تسطع عليه صبرا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا يا رب العالمين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Inshallah, today we'll be covering from verse number 78 to verse number 82. Just a recap of where we are in Surah Kahf. We are in the portion of the story of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam and Khadir. As we know, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was one of the greatest prophets. And once, while delivering a heartfelt sermon, his Sahaba, his companions, his constituents posed a question to him, asking him, "Are you the most learned person living today?" And Musa والسلام, from the knowledge that he had, he answered in the affirmative, yes. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to teach Musa والسلام, although he was correct, but Musa والسلام, was taught a lesson by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is to attribute power to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, attribute the blessings to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And based on this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him about another person who has knowledge that Musa والسلام, does not. And Musa والسلام, his eagerness pushed him to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, "May I go and learn from this person?" And we know the story that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him that take this fish, and where this fish jumps off, this is where you will find Khadir. Now when he goes to Khadir, he asks him for permission. After much of pushback and rejection, finally Khadir says, "Yes, you may join me." So they join. Musa والسلام, joins Khadir. And three incidents, we covered it last week, three incidents happened whilst Musa والسلام, was in the company of Khadir. The first one was فَانْطَلَقَا حَتَّى إِذَا رَكِبَا فِي السَّفِينَةِ خَرَقَاهَا قال أخرقتها لتغرق أهلها لقد جئت شيئا إمرا. They journeyed, and the first place that they went was by a ship. And the people of the ship, they knew Khadir, they allowed them to board without charging them, without taking any remuneration from them, without taking any money from them. And when they boarded the ship, Khadir, right before disembarking, he takes off a plank from the boat and he defects the boat. Now Musa والسلام, although he had taken a promise that he would not ask anything, forgetfully, he asked him that, "What are you doing? Are you destroying the boat to drown the ones who are on the boat?" قال أخرقتها لتغرق أهلها لقد جئت شيئا إمرا. Verily you have done something that is terrible. Now Musa والسلام, he saw Khadir doing this. Khadir took out a plank right before they disembarked, and he took it off in a way that it it devalued the value of the ship. It devalued the ship, but it did not sink the people. The ship was still afloat, but it devalued it. Now, when Musa والسلام, said this, right away Khadir said, so Khadir asked him, قال ألم أقل إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا. Didn't I tell you that you will not be able to be patient with me? You will not have the ability to bear with me. This is Khadir telling Musa والسلام. Now we know, even in the deen of Islam, that forgetfulness is something that can be overlooked. Right? Forgetfulness is something that is overlooked. You find if a fasting person mistakenly eats or drinks, forgiven. If another person does something by mistake, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Right? So forgetfulness is something that is overlooked. So Musa والسلام, says, قال لا تؤاخذني بما نسيت. I forgot. Do not take me to task for what I forgot. Because it was his instinct to teach Musa والسلام. So when he saw wrong, he instinctually went to correct. وَلَا تُرْهِقْنِي مِنْ أَمْرِ عُسْرًا. And then he says, do not take me to task and maybe not make it too difficult for me. So they go on, فَانْطَلَقَا حَتَّى إِذَا لَقِيَا غُلَامًا فَقَتَلَهُ. So they start moving, and then they go to a place where children are playing. And Khadir, he takes one of the youngsters, and he takes the life of that youngster. And this was they were playing, and this was the one who stuck out to be the most handsome, the one who stuck out. Musa والسلام, says that Khadir took his life. The word ghulam generally means a youngster. So the scholars of tafsir, they debate if the child was mature or the child was immature. But most are of the opinion that he was immature, meaning he was not yet baligh. قال أقتلت نفسا زكية. Musa والسلام, the first one was forgetfully he said it. But the second time he's acknowledging it because there's something wrong in his sharia and he has to acknowledge and say it. So he says, قال أقتلت نفسا زكية بغير نفس. Are you taking the life of a pure soul بغير نفس, without any retaliation or without any corporal punishment? Right? So the first is, number one, nafsan zakiyah. This is a ghulam, a child who is pure. A child who is not baligh is not taken to task. A child who is not baligh is not accountable. So number one is that this is a non-baligh child. Number two, the child did not do anything that would ensue life penalty, that would ensue death penalty. Right? The child did not do anything that his life would have to be taken. So Musa والسلام, says, قَالَ قَتَلْتَ نَفْسًا زَكِيَّةً بِغَيْرِ نَفْسٍ. This innocent soul, you took it. لَقَدْ جِئْتَ شَيْئًا إِمْرًا. You took the life of this innocent child, you committed a hideous act indeed. This is a very evil act that you did. Now, Khadir tells Musa والسلام, قَالَ أَلَمْ أَقُلْ لَكَ إِنَّكَ لَن تَسْتَطِيعَ مَعِيَ صَبْرًا. Once again, didn't I tell you that you will not be able to bear with me? And then Musa والسلام, now says, قَالَ إِن سَأَلْتُكَ عَنْ شَيْءٍ بَعْدَهَا. Now, if I were to ask you anything else, فَلَا تُصَاحِبْنِي, then you can let me go. Right? The first time, Musa والسلام, forgot, and he asked him why he broke the plank off of the ship. Number two, he acknowledged what was done, and Musa والسلام, said it. Now, Musa والسلام, is saying, the third time, if I ask you anything again, then you can discharge me, you can let me go, no problem. قَدْ بَلَغْتَ مِنْ لَدُنِّي عُذْرًا. You have received an excuse from me. So now Musa والسلام, 2 strikes, now he tells Khadir, if one more thing happens, then you have a valid reason to let me go. So the story goes on, فَانْطَلَقَا حَتَّى إِذَا أَتَيَا أَهْلَ قَرْيَةٍ. They go until they reach a town. And the town, they say, this name was Antakya. فَانْطَلَقَا حَتَّى إِذَا أَتَيَا أَهْلَ قَرْيَةٍ اسْتَطْعَمَا أَهْلَهَا. Now the custom was when they reached a town, they would go and they would ask the members of the town for some meals and for some provisions. And this was a custom that those who are visiting, they will be taken care of for a number of days. Now these were not ordinary guests. They were Khadir and Musa والسلام. These were the prophets. These were Musa والسلام and Khadir These are great people. Now, it so happened, فَأَبَوْا أَن يُضَيِّفُوهُمَا. They did not want to host them. They did not want to host them. They refused to entertain them. Now, one hadith mentions, or one incident, that when Umar radiallahu anhu was a Khalifa, the people of At-Taqiyya came. And he said, now we have accepted Islam, and the story about us is mentioned. You know, if we were alive at that time and Musa alayhi salatu wasalam came, we would have hosted them. But you know, it was an earlier generation, they did not know, and the Quran says, فَأَبَوْا أَن يُضَيِّفُوهُمَا. They refused to entertain them. Now, because we are Muslims, can you change the words to fa'ataw? Can you change the words, maybe like our nation will not look bad? Now, Umar radiallahu anhu, he says this is not possible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's Quran cannot be changed. So this was a caveat, a hadith that is mentioned, or a story that is mentioned in the books of tafsir. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَبَوْا أَن يُضَيِّفُوهُمَا. The people of the town refused to entertain or give Musa and Khadr alayhi salatu wasalam some provisions, some food and some water. But despite the فَوَجَدَ فِيهَا جِدَارًا يُرِيدُ أَن يَنقَضَّ فَأَخَافَ. There was a wall that was about to topple, that was about to fall down, and those who would pass by it would pass by it in fear that maybe it might collapse on me and it may crush me. So the people were generally had fear of this wall. Now Musa alayhi salam, he is seeing that Khadr, the people are refusing to entertain them, but Khadr is now going, he's wiping his hand over it, and he's fixing the wall. فَوَجَدَ فِيهَا جِدَارًا يُرِيدُ أَن يَنقَضَّ فَأَقَامَ. He makes it stand and he makes it good. Now Musa alayhi salam said, قَالَ لَوْ شِئْتَ لَاتَّخَذْتَ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا. You rebuilt, or you remodeled the wall for them, you fixed the wall for them, you put it back upright. If you would have taken some money for that, some ujra, some compensation for that, it would have been good, right? You did this work for them, you fixed this wall that was causing them a lot of stress. Now at this point, so the third strike now happened, and Musa ﷺ told him that if I ask you another question, then you can let me go. But the scholars of Tafsir, they explain that this question of Musa ﷺ, he asked it knowing that he will be let go. Musa ﷺ, he asked it knowing that he will be let go, because this is not something, the knowledge that was beneficial. Meaning the knowledge that Musa ﷺ had was something that is spiritually uplifting. We learn from Musa ﷺ, it will make you a better believer and take you to Jannah. Now the knowledge of Khadr, what Khadr ﷺ was doing, that was different. That was something even Musa ﷺ could not understand. So he says, you know what? You gotta take your money for this, but you're doing this. This is the third question that he asked. Now Khadr tells Musa ﷺ, قال هذا فراق بيني وبينك سأنبئك بتأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا. Khadr said, هذا فراق بيني وبينك. Now this is the firaq. This is the point of parting between the two of us. From here we will separate. سأنبئك بتأويل. I shall now explain to you the reality of things ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا, about which you could not remain patient. Now Khadr is going to tell Musa ﷺ the reality behind what he did. Now, in accordance to the promise, we have to separate, we have to part ways. You cannot bear with me. But before I part ways, let me tell you the reality of what happened. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to say, أَمَّا السَّفِينَةُ فَكَانَتْ لِمَسَاكِينَ يَعْمَلُونَ فِي الْبَحْرِ. As for the first incident, which was the incident of the ship, where Khadr took out a plank. أَمَّا السَّفِينَةُ. As for the ship, فَكَانَتْ لِمَسَاكِينَ. It belonged to a group of individuals who were poor people, masakin. يَعْمَلُونَ فِي الْبَحْرِ. They would work in the ocean. Maybe they would transport, they would do labor work. They would work in the ocean. They would work in the sea, rather. يَعْمَلُونَ فِي الْبَحْرِ. فَأَرَدْتُ أَنْ أَعِيبَهَا. So I decided to defect the ship. وَكَانَ وَرَاءَهُمْ مَلِكٌ يَأْخُذُ كُلَّ سَفِينَةٍ غَصْبًا. And this was because there is a king behind them who sees every ship by force. Now, Musa ﷺ did not know, the others did not know, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Khadir that the ship defected a little bit. Why? Because if they go to the next port, there is a king there who takes all of the good ships and he leaves the people, meaning he usurps the good ships, or he makes them work and he does not pay them. Nonetheless, those who have ships that are in good condition, those who have boats that are in good conditions, they suffer at the next port. Now Khadir is telling Musa salam that the knowledge that I had was that this was going to happen to them, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed that their ship be saved. Now some narrations mention that Khadir himself went and repaired it afterwards. Right? He had removed the plank just for the time being, that when they passed by their area of that gate, they would be safe. But as soon as they would pass by, Khadir was told to go and fix it and repair it. So this was the first reason that Khadir gave to Musa alayhi salam. Moving on. وَأَمَّا الْغُلَامُ فَكَانَ أَبَوَاهُ مُؤْمِنَيْنِ. And as for the boy, meaning the boy whose life Khadir alayhi salam took, فَكَانَ أَبَوَاهُمَا مُؤْمِنَيْنِ. His parents were believers. فَخَشِينَا أَن يُرْهِقَهُمَا طُغْيَانًا وَكُفْرًا. And we feared that he should oppress them by rebellion and disbelief. Now Musa alayhi here saw the outward, and this is according to what he knew. He had to stop Khadir. But Khadir now explains to Musa alayhi that he had knowledge and ilm from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this young child, his parents are believers. But it was such that this boy was on track to become a rebellious person. Either someone who is a disbeliever or someone who will cause his parents a lot of harm. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed that this boy's life be taken away early so that he can be saved. Right? A non-baligh child, his life is saved for the hereafter, and the parents are also saved from the difficulties of a rebellious child who may make them suffer in the future. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, فَأَرَدْنَا أَن يُبْدِلَهُمَا رَبُّهُمَا خَيْرًا مِنْهُ زَكَاةً وَأَقْرَبُ رَحْمًا. So we intended that their Lord should change him for them, one who is better. فَأَرَادَ رَبُّكَ أَن يُبْدِلَهُمَا رَبُّهُمَا خَيْرًا مِنْهُ زَكَاةً. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to replace the child with a better child. وَأَقْرَبَ رُحْمًا, and one that is near to mercy. The narrations mention that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it such that not only is the boy protected, meaning for the hereafter, the parents are protected, meaning they're not going to have a rebellious child, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed them with a daughter. And this daughter, the narration mentions, married a prophet, and from their progeny also were a number of prophets. Right? It was this was the beginning of a very noble family lineage. And this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala changed the course for this family. Now the question that may come to mind is that why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give birth to the child in the first place? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not guide the child? There are different questions that may be asked. The short answer to all of this is لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not questioned regarding what He does, but we are questioned. Meaning, the wisdoms, and this is one of the lessons from the story of Musa alayhi salam and Khadir, is that there are a lot of things that happen and will continue to happen, and we may not understand them. But there is wisdom behind what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows to happen. For example, so far we saw Khadir, he broke the part of the ship, he took the life of a child, and if he did not explain what was happening, what was happening, till today, it would have been mentioned that he was not a good person, right? Because of what evidently happened. But for these things, he explained what happened, and we understand there is wisdom behind a lot of what happens. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us understanding. So these were the first two. The third one, وَأَمَّا الْجِدَارُ. As for the wall that Khadir fixed, He says, فَكَانَ لِغُلَامَيْنِ يَتِيمَيْنِ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ. They were for two orphans who lived in the city. وَكَانَ تَحْتَهُ كَنْزٌ لَهُمَا. And it was such that they were orphans, but their treasures were buried under this wall. وَكَانَ أَبُوهُمَا صَالِحًا. And their father was a salih, a pious person. And once again we see that when a person has iman and he does good deeds, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes care of him in strange ways. Right? This person, فَكَانَ أَبُوهُمَا صَالِحًا, he was a pious person. Even after he's passing away, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking care of his family. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is protecting his assets. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is protecting him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, as for the wall that was about to collapse, it was such that under this wall, the treasures of these orphans was kept. فَكَانَ أَبُوهُمَا صَالِحًا. And they were the children of a pious person. فَأَرَادَ رَبُّكَ أَن يَبْلُغَا أَشُدَّهُمَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed that they reach an age where they can understand. وَيَسْتَخْرِجَا كَنْزَهُمَا رَحْمَةً مِّن رَبِّكَ. And they're able to take the wealth out themselves from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا فَعَلْتُهُ عَنْ أَمْرِي. At the end of it, Khadir tells Musa alayhi salam that I did not do this on my own accord. This is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he says, ذَلِكَ تَأْوِيلُ مَا لَمْ تَسْتِعْ عَلَيْهِ صَبْرًا. This is the reality or the interpretation of those things which you do not, about which you cannot be patient. So Khadir explains to Musa alayhi salam about the different events that unfolded and the wisdom behind them. And we understand from this story of Musa and Khadir, number one, whatever good we have achieved, we should always be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it and attribute it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Whatever good, whether it's good deeds, whether it is things of this world that we have achieved, all of this we attribute it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a way of attracting the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's protection. And number two, we understand from this story that there are things that happen that we as human beings cannot understand. And this shows that how our intellect is limited. And we cannot ration everything by our own intellect. We have to return it back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning the wisdom, the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we follow the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will not understand everything because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. And this is something that we need to understand. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us an understanding of the Quran al-Kareem, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to recite it, understand it, and make amal on it. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.